welcome everyone that's attending from the public, and I'd like to have the board members and ex-officio members introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Lena Teixeira.
Raymond Casano.
Thomas Wright.
Paris Morphopoulos.
Venkat Devadini.
Caitlin Jammo.
Jay Polglaze.
David Albritton.
Very good. Okay, we'll go to the second item, citizen comments for items not on the agenda. If there's any citizens that would like to address the board, you may come up, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, members. Bill Johnson, 2694 Redford Court West. I was sorry to have missed your meeting, your last meeting, but I was attending the Charter Review Committee meeting where they were talking about council member districts, and I do hope that you received the comments I sent to be distributed at that meeting. I observed this earlier this week that the parking meters were being removed from the old City Hall parking lot, so I consider that progress. It's of course great to have the barricades removed from around the old Harborview site. And in July I was in Venice, Florida, a city with a lovely, vibrant downtown, lots of greenery and aesthetic details, one of which was the downtown identity entrance sign. And this board has talked about those identity entrance signs in the past as it was recommended by ULI, and hopefully we'll be back to trying to program those items in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? Okay, we will move on. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the July 10th, 2019 regular meeting.
So moved.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Looks unanimous. Okay, now we're looking for a motion to adopt the June financial statement for filing. Do we have a motion?
And I have some updated information. Okay. Okay, so looking at the June financial statements. I'm gonna get a lot of steps in. Feel it. So these sheets are a combination of items that are prepared by our finance department in Excel, which, as you know, is very wonky to get printed onto one page. So I wasn't able to get this information on the form for this meeting, but we're figuring out how to do that. A few of you had requested at the last meeting. But essentially, remember, you have two documents. You have a summary page right on top, and then you have everything that shows the expenses by month underneath. And those are in the Legistar. You'll see the attachments. But the question was, you know, what money do we actually have? What money do we think we're going to have through September 30th, right, or that might be carried over? So remember, our fiscal year is from September 1st to September 30th. The funds that the DDB has spent as of June 30th are the $423,453. So that's June 30th, and we haven't closed out July yet because July just ended. Remaining funds that are encumbered, so the money that you will spend by September 30th is about $67,000, right? And that includes the augmented reality project, the art tech project that's coming up, the marketing project, which we'll talk more about, option A or B, the viral video campaign or a different kind of campaign, the payments that you guys do for downtown lights, and then there's some remaining money in Station Square events that you are allocating towards the holiday extravaganza. So then what's available to spend by September 30th is approximately $24,000 in addition to future downtown initiatives line of $29,000. And where that $24,000 came from is we have a couple line items like 47, create a high-tech CEO council, that's $5,000. One-stop shop education campaign is $5,000. The downtown streetscape maintenance, we're not gonna be asking you guys. The CRA is taking care of all the maintenance cost, pressure washing, et cetera, from here from going forward. And then there was incubator incentives, collateral, some graphic design and advertising. Again, that I'm not sure that if Ann Fogarty France paid for certain ads out of DDB before in the past, but the CRA has taken on all that marketing and advertising. So when you're looking at the budget today, just know that this number at the bottom here, your 24 plus 29, you have that you can allocate during this current fiscal year, that you can spend by September 30th if you would like, or it can roll over into next year, whatever you think. And these are items that are tied to the work plan that we know aren't going to happen because we've changed focus or because it's simply not physically possible by September 30th. Are there any questions about that?
We don't have any current real initiatives to use up any of those two numbers between now and September 30th, right? Like it would be some new idea that would use those funds between now and then. That would be tough to do.
You can always spend more money on marketing, right? I mean, if you wanted to put it into the public relations or that project, you can. If there's events that you have in mind or that you want to augment, you could do that. I think Eleanor is not here tonight, but I know that she's meeting with different groups. She has an idea about lighting up, doing some more lights in the streetscaping, which I think is an amazing idea.
She said she would be back in the future. Like, I don't think that'll happen in the remaining fiscal year. Like, even to
Depending on the
present this
option.
with.
There's two options. There's a quicker, easier option that's around $30,000 that could happen by September 30th. And then there's a longer term, more comprehensive option that there's no way it would happen by September 30th. But I think that, it's still, we're 7 weeks out. So, kind of depends on what happens tonight. But that would be up to you. We're happy to facilitate whatever you decide.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, in the June statement I'm looking at on the screen, it indicates that the future downtown initiatives has a balance of $18,653, and you've got $29,000. Where did the extra $10,000, $11,000 originate?
The Harborview party?
Is that my fireworks from the
Right,
party?
yeah.
Just guessing.
No, I think you're actually right, Lena. I mean, it's not a straight 10,000, but that's, the Harborview money had not moved down yet.
Okay.
So I'll double check on that. But that would be my,
Okay. Thanks for breaking that out. I think, for me, that's helpful, and appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome. And we're working on, again, with finance, just getting a better cover sheet that makes it, understandable by a layperson.
Very good. Okay, so thank you, Amanda. That brings us back to, we're looking for a motion to adopt the June financial
So
statement.
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, now we're looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 01-19, adopting the City of Clearwater investment policy per Florida statute requirements. Amanda, can you?
Yeah, so this is the DDB's bylaws require that it adopt an investment policy every year, and this is the one that the city has been in use for just at 10 years now. So nothing's changed from last year. And at any point in time, the DD money is kept separate, it can be pulled out. But we as a board benefit from it being pulled with the city's larger funds because, we can invest in more things and earn more interest on a larger sum of money.
Okay, and do we need to read out this resolution at this meeting or just have a motion on it?
I think a motion
7
should,
pages.
7 pages, really?
I think a
It's
motion
one
will
page.
suffice. You can read the title.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to adopt resolutions 01-19, the Clearwater Downtown Development Board investment policy. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
So, second.
Very good. Are there any citizen comments? Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. It's unanimous. Okay, The next item is the Imagine Clearwater presentation. I'd like to welcome Assistant Manager Michael Dell. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. I thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to come and talk to you all about what we're doing. It's a very exciting opportunity for me for about 90 days. So what I will do, when I spoke to the partnership last night, so my regrets for the 3 or 4 of you who sat through that last night. I will try to be somewhat more succinct, but I will stay here as long as you want to answer anything that you want to ask me. So let me just kind of preface where we are, what I've been working on and focusing on, and then we'll try to answer any questions you have about anything in particular. I moved over to the city offices, like I said, about 90 days ago, and took on this project. And I think I share a sense of some frustration with our pace and our change and our moving forward, implementing the vision. And so my charge from the city manager was to do what I can do to, try to pick the project up. And, frankly, having, as you all are well aware, been the planning and development director here for 14 years, this kind of thing is in my area. It's an area that I'm passionate about. It's an area that I believe strongly in. I believe in a great opportunity in downtown Clearwater, and so I'm admittedly passionate about that and committed to it. And so it's not been as much fun for me to sit on the sidelines, frankly, and kind of watch that. So the opportunity to come over to the city manager's office and re-engage on the project has been an incredibly exciting change for me. So did a couple of things. One is, and I don't want to give you a lot of the history, but a lot of the planning work that had gone out, come from the original Urban Land Institute work in 2014, had been done. That is the boating community work, the North Marina Master Plan work. North Marina Master Plan, as you're well aware, is well into construction. Wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't wrap up a little earlier than anticipated. It's going to be a magnificent change to that area. Really the kind of modern facility that we need there, and that will be an invitation to the public as another spot to access our waterfront. So we wrapped up the Imagine Clearwater plan in 2017, as you're aware. The plan that's on the board for you now, pretty much completely intact, little change in the road here and there, but I would make the case that with a couple of exceptions where council has amended things a little bit on the venue, that this pretty much is exactly what we engaged the citizens of Clearwater to come up with as part of that Imagine Clearwater process. So as part of that, the component of the activation of the park that was recommended by the Urban Lands Institute and also suggested by HRNA and Sasaki, the architects on the Imagine Clearwater plan, we had done a study about the enhancement of the library. So that study had been completed. It had been presented to the city staff a year ago. We had never presented that study to the council. It had a public engagement process, as did all of our efforts on the waterfront redevelopment. And the committee that had been assembled with it in the public process had kind of developed something that was a consensus that they had accepted. I met with the head of the library, Ms. Obermeyer. She was behind and supported the plan, and so we looked at the potential of phasing it. The construction, the enhancement of the library is going to be a very significant, but never, as you can imagine, a disruptive influence on the library. So while the $6.5, $7 million, whatever it's going to be, is a substantial amount of money, no doubt, it really wasn't a project of the size and scale that we felt like ought to be divided up for 2 long extended periods of disruption to the library. So We recommended to City Council, and City Council authorized us to move forward with it. It's been in our capital budget programming for a while, so we had anticipated it and have a funding source for it. So we are designing the permit and construction documents now to move forward with the library. That'll probably be really the next thing that is a component of our park that'll be under construction. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but generally, as a civic anchor to our park, we're going to integrate it with the park. It's going to become a part of the park. We would like the community to not see it as a separate part of the park. Right now, it has no door on Osceola. It kind of has the worst of both worlds. It has no door and access to a downtown urban street, which is Osceola. The front entrance faces a parking lot. It's probably not the most efficient space, as it turns out, in terms of our lack of success for trying to activate the food area. What we've wanted to accomplish with that, we really haven't seen a lot of success at. I think probably the bigger thing, and I didn't mention this last night, but I probably should have, because the library has been a source of contention for some as to why we're doing the library. One is, I'll say it's not an either or. We didn't drop something off our radar screen because we want to move forward with the library. The library is a component, an integrated part of the park and what we're doing with the waterfront. It's a civic component, and those are important to public spaces. But probably in some ways as significant as libraries have changed, and they've changed dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years. It's been extraordinary what's happened to libraries and bookstores and everything else. That's changing. I mean, we now rent telescopes and power tools out of this library. So the kind of space that the librarians say they need and want, the kind of thing that really engages our community and has them participate in the library, and active space of the library is different now than what it was when, I was going to a library in my hometown, 50 years ago. So this is going to address that need and really reactivate and enhance the library for the next technological innovation, I guess, if you will, whatever that is, but it's certainly going to position it for today's market in terms of what libraries are trying to provide to our community. So in any event, we're going to move forward with that. It'll be the next really opportunity for construction to occur. At the same time, we worked on, that really has been, somebody said, well, that's too much of a focus. Really, it's been, the work on that library was done. If my time in this office has been equals to a day, I probably spent less than 10 minutes on the library. It was ready. We just needed to move forward with it. 2 weeks ago, the City Council authorized the scope of work for Stantec to design the construction and permit drawings for the park. The initial phase of the park, that's between $5 and $6 million. I think 5.7, somewhere along in there. They're underway with that. We will be back in the fall for the final part of that work order, which will be around $800,000 for the permit and construction drawings for the second and last phase. I might mention that to you too as a little bit of a change. We originally had the park planned in 3 phases, but I want to speed things up, and also from an efficiency of construction standpoint, we incorporated what had been phase 2 and 3 into an initial phase 1. So it's basically everything you see from the amphitheater here in this area to the south. The area where the current band shell is, this area here, which is actually Coachman Park, is going to be the second and final phase. That doesn't mean we want a delay in construction. We want interruptions. We want to continue progressively throughout the park to construct the entire facility. So, but that'll give us some options next year in terms of some of our signature events. We'd like to be able to continue to have those and accommodate them in the park. And hopefully and we can manage this in such a way as to be able to leave ourselves some options. But we'll have, we're hiring a construction manager to manage through this process. That selection process is underway now by engineering, so we should have them on board soon, and then we'll really get into some of the more details of the staging and approach to construction that we want to do. In the meantime, I've asked council to allow us this summer to drill down more on the architecture of the structures in the park. This includes the venue and the canopies, the bathrooms, and the other structures. Obviously, the big one is the entertainment venue, the band shell. I've asked council, they've given us the okay to consider a phasing option for that. I think, I want to be able to bring to them options for those facilities. I think, that we want the signature component of the park to be the band shell, the covering, the facility that we need there. I've asked the architects not to let canopy seating drive the architectural, the iconic nature of the primary component of our park, which is the band shell and the staging and the roof covering and all of that. So we want to have good architectural priorities and a sense of good urban design and architectural significance when we're done. So trying to think, Amanda, have I?
Do you want to talk about HRNA and the RFP process for the redevelopment?
Yes, thank you very much. HRNA, in addition to the other things that we've done, we've gone back to HRNA and asked them to come in, and you may have seen about this, to update our economic analysis. The economic analysis that we did for the Bluff properties was done probably about 3 years ago now. And so we're going to move forward. I want to get an RFP on the street as soon as possible for the Harborview site. So we want to have current economics on the valuations of the Harborview site and the other Bluff properties that we own. So we're going to update those. We brought in Wanamaker Jensen to support HRNA. With regard to architectural renderings of the kind of vision that we have for the Harborview site. We want to be able to show the development community a clear vision of what that is. It doesn't mean that the architecture or the design is etched in stone, but when we talk to people about wanting to have mixed use residential over retail and something restaurants and an activated park edge, we want to make sure that they clearly can see what that means to us and what we want to achieve there. We're going to have them also support HRNA with some architectural renderings of the current City Hall site, adaptive reuse potential for that, and commercial private development on the balance of the property, which is to be the parking lot area, with an eye on the potential adaptive reuse of the City Hall site as another civic anchor to the south end of the park, tied in with the Bluff Walk and that sort of thing. And we'll also have them do some architectural renderings for us of the CMA site and kind of what the potential is there for those. This particular area doesn't have a height limitation. Doesn't mean they have to be tall buildings, but there is a great deal of development potential both on the CMA site as well as the parking lot area of the City Hall site. So depending upon if there is any adaptive reuse potential to City Hall, that would be a recladded building and some significant architectural change, no doubt. And then you'd have a substantial private development opportunity on the parking lot. We're not going to front Osceola with a parking lot. That is not, that's not where we need to go. So we can integrate the two successfully, or at some point, if the City Hall does not have a viable civic use for us as a component of anchoring the south end of the park, then we'll do what needs to be done to develop the entire piece. But for right now, I think we want to we want to keep our possibilities and opportunities in play and see what we may have in that in terms of an asset. You know, at the end of the day, the easiest thing we can do is tear it down. I think HRNA's recommendation to us was that we move forward more immediately with the Harborview site. I think that makes a lot of sense. One is that unlike the other sites, we have a very clear vision and established in our plan as to what kind of development and the scale that we want to see on the Harborview site. So that's important, where we have clear vision that we can articulate. We want to represent that, and we want to market it to the development community. So HRNA is going to help us. We're developing a list of developers who do the kind of work that we want done. Tampa and St. Pete attract them in large numbers, as you're well aware. We are not so fortunate to attract the kind of urban developers that we need for the properties that we have. So we're going to reach out to them. We're going to try to make it an easy vision, and we'll attract the kind of folks who are able to deliver the kind of product that we want. So I think that I will conclude there. If you've got any questions, I may think of something else to comment on.
Talk about the referendum, because obviously if you do anything to that, whatever we design for that, we're going to have a referendum.
Good point. I think, when I first came into this role, my objective was to, let's do everything in the world we can do to get to a referendum in March. And frankly, the work that we're doing is still geared on that timeline internally. But I think the reality of this is, and we've talked to the city council about it, is that it's a rather substantial election. And I'm not sure that we believe that it's in our best interest to have a referendum on that property in the middle of a substantial election for the community. So what we've kind of talked about council with is the belief that we might be better served to get past that point and then really target the August primary election as the referendum election on the Harborview site. So, the reality of that is when you want to have the RFP out there, you want to have your vision well articulated. We want the community to be reassured that what we're doing is consistent with the plan that we engage them to generate. So we want them to have a high level of confidence about that, and it's important to successful referendums. So I think, we can use that time wisely, but I don't want to, I think as much as I want to move it forward sooner rather than later, I think, just from a logistical standpoint, it's probably, the substantive nature of the elections in March is probably just good policy decision for us to deal with this issue in August. So that's kind of what we're thinking of, and I think we mentioned that to council. We've talked to them about it, and I think my impression is that they are understanding of that, and so I would anticipate that's our timeline on the referendum. We'll do the referendum for the Harborview site. I think the plan, the suggested route from us in the plan is kind of the one that we're recommending following. Doesn't mean somebody could not show up tomorrow with a grand idea for CMA or the City Hall site or whatever. We're not turning anybody away, but our aggressive marketing is initially going to be focused on Harborview Center. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I think, everything we're doing will add value. And yes, sir, I'll shut up for a while.
Okay. The Harborview Center, you're talking about basically the parking lot of the library between here and the old
No, it's where the
harbor?
Harborview Center was. We've taken it down. A good portion of that is never going to be built on. It'll be part of the plaza of the park. So it'll be park space. But you get several feet off of the corner of Cleveland, then we would have a mixed-use residential retail. Ideally, we would like to see restaurants and active public space on that plaza area overlooking the park. It'd be a great public assembly place for, beautiful view of the park and the waterfront from downtown.
What kind of height are you contemplating for that structure?
The plan, the public was not comfortable with unlimited heights on that section of the park. And so because of the library height, the plan actually calls for the mixed-use residential over retail. It could be a boutique hotel. I mean, people have mentioned that. No taller than the library. I think we've got around 87 feet to work with or something along that line. So we will, our vision will be something that is, will activate that space in the plaza area, but will not overwhelm the library and that civic anchor. So.
Okay. From my point of view as a business person in the downtown, it'd be far more important to have that be pushed in the direction of being something that's occupied throughout the year, like a hotel, rather than a residence where it's snowbirds or somebody that's only here a few months a year.
Well, I think it's why HRNA, originally they mentioned the boutique hotel as an option, which it is, but I think they mentioned apartments. Apartments tend to be lived in. The rental community has had a fairly strong market. We've benefited from that in Clearwater. Having an active edge to the park, apartment living overlooking parks. I mean, that's so. I think we share the objective 100%. Is that we want them to be occupied.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that would be the intent.
Yeah, because they might be rented, but they might be vacant most
That's
of the
true.
year.
It could be
That would be
rented and
bad for downtown.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Can I?
Lena first.
Yeah. First, let me begin. It's my turn to apologize, right? Because you're about to hear the same thing you heard.
Of course.
I want to thank you so much for not only addressing us tonight, but as well as the CDP last night. I was drawn to your passion. I want to commend you for it. It was infectious. I loved it. But I would be remiss if I don't communicate what I've been asked to communicate, and a lot of these points I agree. So now it's my turn to apologize because you're going to hear me again, but I do feel that since only Councilman Albritton was there last night, I want to communicate with my fellow members. The concern in the community, to some, is that they feel that the ROI is in question, return on investment. $6 million is a big investment for the library. That's what I'm specifically speaking about, which basically has three components, major components, which is a tie-in to the Imagine Clearwater, the moving of the doors, as well as the restricted reception hall. So in a way, I feel like the jealous, redheaded stepchild. I want that passion to be applied to parking, because to me, this is a huge endeavor when you tie it in with Imagine Clearwater, just for argument's sake, $55 million. This is ambitious, rightfully so. Clearwater deserves it. To have this huge investment, ambitious investment without the infrastructure, to me is dangerous and it's concerning. And I don't think that the focus on the library is the right thing to do. Again, give me an olive branch, reassign some of that money to wayfinding, to parking for short term. I'm a little bit jealous for all the passion for this library. I think it's perfectly fine as we are. I think it's the cherry on top. Let's say we start the library right now. So let's say in a year it's done. It's a beautiful terrace that's going to be overlooking a construction site. I understand the intent, and I agree with it. It should be tied. But let's just for a second step back and think perhaps we can do it for $180,000 and just do the landscaping and the stairs to connect it for now, and then revisit. And maybe reallocate those funds to something like the infrastructure. Make sure that this succeeds. So I just wanted to communicate that. And thanks again for your passion. I loved it.
Very welcome.
Okay, Venkat was next.
What about the city hall? Last time, I think we recommended for a letter of recommendation to the council. Was that letter sent?
Yep, they have
Okay.
a hard copy with your exact words that are in the minutes.
Okay. And so what is the plan on that? Is it going to be demolished or is it going to be there? What's the exact plan?
I mean, my recommendation to them certainly is that the last thing I want to do right now is demolish City Hall. So our recommendation to council is to let us see what the adaptive reuse potential of that is as a civic anchor to the south side of the park. So right now, the city council has afforded me the opportunity to go out and pursue that. So that's what we're going to do. I think it would be a big mistake to take down the City Hall without understanding what value we may have as a civic anchor to the south side of the park. I think, I understand, I presume that the reason that we want to tear down City Hall is so we've got a development-ready construction site, right? I mean, I can't think of another reason for doing that.
Right.
So otherwise, there's no benefit to having an empty lot. We've got lots of empty lots downtown, and, they're not doing very much for us. I think the issue that I have with that is that, one is that if there is a successful adaptive reuse of the City Hall site, it does not in fact, it's the opposite. It does not preclude development on the majority of the property which remains. I think development on the majority of the property that remains is absolutely vital to downtown. So any adaptive reuse, in my mind, has to come as a mixed-use, adaptive reuse major development. That is a major development site. It is now, and it will be in the future. So what would be a missed opportunity for us is to adaptively reuse the parking lot or the building and settle for surface parking in the heart of our downtown. Surface parking in the hearts of urban downtowns is an energy drain. It's a detraction and they are unproductive, and not only that, are they're damaging space to have surface parking lots on primary urban streets in downtown. So, but I think that we are underestimating the value of, let me put it this way, I guess. It's easy for people to picture Central Park. This is not Central Park. There's one Central Park in the world, it's a beautiful, but you look at the assets that are in the park. You don't even have to go that far. Go to St. Petersburg. Look at the assets that they have in their civic space in the parks and the waterfront. That's where their success is. They worked their way through their silver bullets, right? They built Baywalk. They finally had Nichols Company came in and built Baywalk, all right? It's been redeveloped, once, twice? And there'll probably be a third time on the horizon when Tampa built Central Ybor. Less than half of that's left. They built Channelside. That was another silver bullet. That's been mostly torn down. And those last two, they were sitting in the middle of one of the most successful music venues on the planet in a 21,000-seat arena. Civic components are important to public space. And our collective community, the citizens of Clearwater, I think, have a much better idea of what they would like to see that would bring them here and re-engage them in our waterfront, frankly, sometimes than we do. And I think if you look at successful downtowns, if you look at successful public spaces, you'll find that the best ones, the ones that we enjoy the most, have some civic virtue and civic anchor to them. And so all I'm saying is that the easiest thing that we can do is to go tear down the building and have an empty building lot. But from a market standpoint, we've got development opportunities all over downtown. People are not coming in and asking for approvals for anything. It's been a long, long time since somebody proposed something substantial downtown. We can put the property on the market when there is no real market for investment, getting people down here. I mean, we've not, we pay people to come down and start restaurants, okay? We provide capital to people to put in restaurants. Is there any real benefit to us generating more lots that are vacant and empty, or do we have to put a fence around to keep people out of a construction site? Let's take a look and see what kind of an asset we may have in adaptive reuse. If we could find an anchor, you look at what Chihuly has done for St. Petersburg, or Dali has done for St. Petersburg, now the Western Museum of Art, the Imagine Museum of Art. You look at these assets that St. Petersburg have. Let's not eliminate our opportunity to find a world-class something. That building, we hired, and I'll try to shut up here soon. But the architects who are working on the adaptive reuse scenarios for us probably, and it was shocking to me because they're also working on North Ward School. I would have thought North Ward School would have been like, wow, we got a chance to work on it because that's a beautiful old school. It's historic. It's lovely. They're fired up about the City Hall site. I can't remember the Miami Museum. What?
The Perez Museum of Art.
Can I intercept
Yes.
now? Because we have
Please.
limited time, sorry. But when you say that they expressed interest, did they send like a formal letter or did they send a formal RFP or what is it? Is it a discussion? Or is it a
They're
letter of
architect of
intent?
records.
What kind of document have they sent to express their
They're an
intent?
architect of record. We hired them to support HR&A and do
No,
the
no,
architecture.
not the architect. The people who wanted to do the reuse, the vendors, the developers who wanted to come there for the
These are
city
all
hall building.
Yeah, I don't have any, yeah.
Some that came through the call for artists for Second Century Studios
Got it.
that was issued last year. So some of the cultural institutions came through that and some are simply through conversations because they've seen, all the meetings and things happening through the Imagine Clearwater.
Do we have anybody that we can put on record?
No, we wouldn't be at that point.
Okay,
Right, it would be premature because we haven't issued an RFP.
go ahead, Venkat, and then we'll move on.
Sure. Because 3 boards, the Downtown Development Board, the CDP Board, the DCMA, all voted to demolish the City Hall building. And we feel that it's in our best interest to get this demolished. And you're talking about silver bullets, but for me, the black bullet is the 2 businesses in front of me, the Dunkin' Donuts, Maria Alicia's, the Mexican restaurant, they have closed down. The restaurants, all the progress that has happened in the last 2 years is now going back. I just want you to do that. Thank you.
That's correct. We have a market struggle down here. We have a lot of work to do on the demand side of the equation, no question.
I wanted to give Thomas an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, I have a number of things, so you can cut me off whenever you want, but just back to the beginning, thanks for taking on the project. It's baffled me that we would spend $55 million without having somebody spearhead this. So you were planning and development director for 14 years. Are you still wearing that hat?
No.
Okay, so your full-time role now is Imagine Clearwater.
I'm the assistant city manager, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm not in favor of spending the money on the library right now. Just going to go there real quick. City Hall, is that property going to include the parking, or can a developer say, I'll take the parking lot, you guys keep the building? How's that laid out? Is that one package deal?
Yeah, I mean, it would be one where we would retain the city hall building as a civic component to the park, and then the parcel off the rest for private development.
Okay,
It's a large piece.
okay. And with respect to City Hall, do we have a point in time where we would say, okay, discussion is over, we're going to tear it down, and we're going to go and not have this fantasy of some museum that's going to be put there?
I mean, at some point, we'll work our way through the decision-making process.
Okay,
Yeah,
see, that's-
I don't know what that date is.
Okay, that's part of what I have a problem with, because I'm on this board for 9 years, and I've seen everything delayed, studied, and delayed. So I would ask, as your role in spearheading this project, come up with some timeline that says, okay, we've let this go for this long, let's move forward. Right? Just give us a date. Give us a date, like when the harbor view came down. I can't tell you the number of times I asked, when's it coming down? When's it coming down? It's down. It's beautiful. As a developer, that would be a spot that should attract a lot of attention. And I'm surprised we don't have anybody that has said, wow, I could do something with that. Right? I know we haven't had a call for, or I guess we have sort of a subtle call for developers, but it baffles me that that building has been there for over 20 years, I suppose, and there's still nothing there. Let me just move on a little bit here. As I'm looking at the drawings here, and I'm assuming that's pretty relative how that will lay out.
Mhm.
How does a boater get their stuff down to their boat?
Park in the parking lot and walk there.
Okay,
You got a parking lot underneath the, let me see if I can, this is all parking lot underneath the causeway. I'm working with Stantec and our engineering team I think we can get some more space in this area. There's some other options that I'm looking at with them to provide some other options as well at the extreme south end of the park, kind of down in this area in here, which hasn't had any programming yet, so we're taking a look at that.
that has no view down there, so that'd be a great place for a parking lot, right?
Yeah, it's not very big, so we wouldn't be looking at a whole, big number of spaces, but it might give us some flex space that we could use during events to accommodate some of our boating community as well. So we're exploring that. Yeah, I've met with the director of Marine and Aviation, and we're going to try to develop some additional scenarios and a plan for that. So,
our board has about a $500,000 investment in that marina, so we'd like to see that be successful and not have people say, I can't keep my boat there because I can't get my dock cart down there.
yeah, this marina is not ever going to not be successful.
I hope you're right. As they say in Miami Beach, from your mouth to God's ears. We're losing some parking, and I just wonder, based on where the Harbor View parking was, how's that going to be backfilled?
The parking for the park and the library, that'll probably be primarily library. Any private mixed-use redevelopment of the property that's immediately to the south will have to provide its own parking because it's residential, so it'll have to provide structured parking there. Then otherwise, the park is designed to park the park. It's not designed to park large venue events, so that's where we get into, as I think Lena said, the parking is infrastructure, and that's a conversation we've been having with council for years. There's no question that we, will be need to take a look at that, the infrastructure needs as the park gets redeveloped and becomes successful.
Well, and we actually have those estimates, you'll see from the parking study in 3 locations where the parking can be built.
Okay.
I think ideally it would be nice to not have to have that parking at all, but the main thing for the library is to cover the library and then also accessible spaces. It would be wonderful if that were another gateway to the park, but right now we don't have the luxury of doing that. We'll have to find other solutions down the line, and so until we do, then we're going to protect at least what we need from accessibility standpoint to the library. But those are things that we can, as time permits, we can look at, and as we infill the infrastructure in other areas, that we can maybe address that. So.
Okay, just a couple more points, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
I was just gonna make one comment here. If we can, we have a very long agenda today with a lot to do. This is all very fascinating and important to us, and we want.
I'll be happy to come back anytime.
We would love to have you come back. I think we all have a deep interest in this topic, but if we delay this too much longer, we'll be here till like 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. So if you can wrap it up in the next 60 seconds.
Probably not. So
do your best.
I'll do my best. With respect to HR&A, the economic analysis that was just ordered, when's the time frame for them to have that completed and back to you?
Probably, I think it's about September, so it's a pretty short timeline for them. We want to get the RFP issued this fall, so my objective is that we get the RFP on the Harbor View site out as quickly as we can.
Okay, good goal. With respect to moving the referendum from March to August, once again, it's just another delay. Just want to say that. My last question is, why are we using this library as the cap on height for a building that might be right across the street, across the parking lot? We have a 26-story building, across the.
It was important to our residents.
That this be the cap of how high you can build in Clearwater?
Downtown Clearwater has unlimited heights in the downtown core, but the publicly generated plan that our community, the citizens of our community, did not want to see the park overwhelmed with high-rise construction. So we talked about that at great length. We settled on something that everybody was comfortable with. We want to activate the park, but we want to kind of minimize the scale. We don't want to overwhelm the park, give it an active edge, not overwhelm it. We settled on the library height. It should give us a few floors of residential use over retail restaurants and be able to incorporate structured parking. So that was an area where the community was comfortable, and I think it leaves it's a good reasonable place to be.
Mr. Chairman, it was by approval of the referendum. That's all the public allowed us to go.
Okay.
They said it was part of those referendum
I
questions.
think we'll leave it at that. And
Okay.
this is a topic, obviously, that everyone is very interested in, so we will be inviting you
Yeah,
back.
if time permits, I'll be happy to come back next month. We can finish if you'd like. So at any rate, thank you for inviting me.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, let's move on. We have presentations. We have a post-event report from the Downtown Clearwater Craft Beer and Music Festival.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Eric Sullivan, Chairman of the Clearwater Downtown Partnership. Thank you for continued support. This is the third annual Craft Beer, Art, and Music Festival. It was a good success this year. We had the event on June 1st. This year we added more art, which included sidewalk art, included some living artists, including acrobats, and then we also had more bands and some different diverse bands in the lineup this year. As in years past, rain is always a concern, but weather is always a big impact. This year we had heat, and we had a lot of it. So the double-edged sword of that was it did draw people, keep some people away, but those that came down really had a great opportunity to get in and experience time in the downtown merchants. Some of the feedback that we heard was that it was the busiest day of the summer this far, their best day ever in one case, the most diverse crowd seen in a restaurant. And a large part of that was thankful to the large marketing outreach we did this year. We had over $40,000 of in-kind marketing. A lot of that was used through our relationship with Cox Media, 97X, 102.5 The Bone, 107.3 The Eagle, as well as we had spots with Charlie Belcher, Channel 10, a number of other local news outlets, and a big social media push. So I think that helped to spread the reach. And the other thing that we did that was unique this year, different than years past, was we coupled it onto the heels of a Blast Friday. And so what was unique about that was that Blast Friday was a huge success. It was one of the best that I know I can personally say I attended over the course of the summer. And what was interesting was you really saw you had a good local contingency at that Blast Friday, and you saw a whole different group of patrons and participants come in the next day to the Craft Beer, Art, and Music Festival. So all good things. In total, tough to track on an open event like that, but we figure we're somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 participants based on beverage sales, beer sales, wristbands at the ID check-in stations, and things of that nature. So again, a huge success. Our goal was to be at 7. Our overly ambitious goal was to get to 10, where we'd like to get, and that's our goal this year. Some of the things that we're going to do, learning from the successes this year and also just from trials, we had moved it later into the summer this year, really just because of the lift of the event. We had a phenomenal leader in years past who was doing a lot of undertaking, and as a board, we bought ourselves a couple extra months. We brought on a full-time event planner for the event specifically, Melrose Entertainment. Melissa did a great job on the event, and then we're also partnered with House of Beer. So this next year, what we'd like to propose, and we're currently in conversations with the city about, is actually moving it back to more of a springtime event, hopefully to get the weather more cooperative with us, and try to find a time in March. But again, we're looking at the event calendar right now with the team. We're going to continue to expand the emphasis on art and music. That was really well received this year. And one of the things that we also did with the timeline this year was we were more focused on the distribution with Great Bay and House of Beer. In years past, we'd had more diverse vendors and individual vendors come, and I think that's something that we heard feedback on we want to be able to do again in this coming year. We're also going to continue to expand the children's area and really focus this as a family-friendly event, because what it's really taken shape with the different entertainment and the day-long activities is it's really a family fun block party. So that's the recap really from this year, where we'd like to go next year. In our funding request, we have $10,000 in our funding request for this year. One of the things that we're looking to do as the CDP continues to expand events to try to get people downtown, to expose them to our merchants, to our restaurants, and certainly to the opportunities to live, work, locate your businesses downtown, is we want to bring out a full-time events person. And so part of what this will do is we're looking at another event to add to our list to mix in to the lineups. That'll take us to 4 really marquee events with some smaller events sprinkled in. And the goal will be that this person will help to really make these events bigger, better, more consistent, and then work with just all of the moving pieces excuse me, that are inherent to launching these types of events. So that's the request that we put in back in May, and the results from the festival in June, and be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions? Okay, thank you. That sounds like it was a great success.
Thank
we'll
you.
be looking at those numbers.
Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, we have a funding request for the 2019-2020 Hooters Clearwater Superboat National Championship. Frank, would you like to speak to that? Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. I want to pass a few things out first. These are press releases, one from the city of Clearwater, and I'm sure there's a couple guys would be interested to see these since their name's on the bottom of them.
Plans by design.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, this year, we have a couple things that are going to be a little different from last year. We have we're going with a new Superboat International has ceased. So what's happened is we're going with a Race World, and they're one of the guys was a partner with John Carbonell, and so they're the sanctioning body, so we're going with them. And Mr. Carbonell has been very sick, and his wife has been sick, and they thought he was going to die, and then he came back. But anyway, so the Carbonells lost Miami, and Race World picked up. Carbonell lost Key West, and that's one of the biggest events. So Race World picked up Key West, and we're supporting and going with Race World this year. We had another sanctioning body that wanted to come to Clearwater, and they wanted to bring 75 jet skis on Saturday, and they wanted to bring 40 little small boats, and I didn't think that Clearwater wanted to have that circus on their beautiful beach. So we're staying with the same format that we've had in the last years. So, and again, we appreciate all your support. Last year, we had the red tide up against us, as you very well know, and we ended up with around 130,000 people, or I think it's 130,000 people. No, I take that back. 130,000 people attended, yes. And it was a $17 million impact to the community. Okay? So we plan on doing the same thing we've done every year, not any changes. Parade on Saturday night and or Friday night.
Friday night.
Friday night?
Yeah, Friday night, excuse me. And so everything should stay the same with the party. The downtown, the restaurateurs, they liked it when we had the party downstairs. They had big turnout. The rain stayed away, so we had a good night. And also, here's the impact study I'm going to leave with you. Okay? And you always ask for that, so I want to let you have that.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Great.
Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Is the route the same for your parade?
What's that?
Is the route going to be?
Everything's the same. We keep it easy that way. And it works. It's a good event, and we have Spectrum on board to market, and also Hooters is on board, our big sponsors.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. And also thank you for your 10 years of support. It really means a lot. Okay? Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Presentation of DDB Ordinance Revision Project. Amanda?
And your DDB attorney, Elise Winters, is here tonight. We are, where's my escape button?
Don't worry, I'll keep it to an hour.
Mm-hmm. Got a gavel right here.
You're gonna throw it at me?
No.
So we're, as you know, this is on the work plan. We've been talking about this for a while. So the schedule that we're trying to move forward with, we're going to review the existing regulations very briefly tonight. September meeting, we'll be discussing proposed changes, right? So you guys have time to think between now and September about proposed changes to the ordinance. Review those in October, so have a draft ready for the DDB to look at. And you've received some Paris's recommended changes to the bylaws tonight to start perusing. But looking at that in October and then bringing it to City Council in November. So this is going to be work every month, right, of reading and commenting. So I wanted to put that out there. Think about that as we're going through this. If you are up for this, right, this board will be intact through the end of the year, right? Even though we have the election, everyone's term is the 3 terms that are up, they still go through December 2019. So it'd be really nice to have this completed with the current board. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Elise.
Okay, how do I move this when I need to?
Just this down arrow right here.
Thank you. All right.
But I'm not far away.
All right. Well, I think I can handle the down hour. All right. I'm going to just quickly cover the background, okay? Although you started out as state law, you are currently governed by ordinance, by your bylaws, and you have voluntarily entered into an interlocal agreement with the CRA that defines that relationship. So those are your 3 major documents. You have got a bunch of other contracts that you enter into, but those are the ones that control you. The DDB is an independent special district with taxing authority. As an independent special district with taxing authority, there are a bunch of other state regulations that control you. I gave you, I think it was 2 meetings ago, a fairly large package that details most of those. And those that were not attached or summarized, I told you where to find them. I'm available for questions. The 2 areas where you're public officers. You're the public officer, just like a city commissioner's a public officer, just like the governor's a public officer. You are regulated to the same extent that those people are regulated. The 2 areas where most public officers get in trouble are both sunshine law. One of them is the open meetings law. Anytime 2 of you discuss something, 2 or more of you discuss something that might come before this board, that is supposed to be a meeting open to the public with minutes. If you're having lunch and something comes up casually, shut up. Don't do it. All right, stop talking. If you are listening to a vote on a matter that comes before your board at 3 different other meetings, if there are other members of this board at those meetings, I hope you're being very careful with how you interact with each other. Otherwise, you're in violation of the sunshine law, the open meeting law. I know that there are multiple people involved with these downtown organizations. Unless those meetings are open to the public with notice and minutes, you have to be very careful as to how you interact with each other. And you have to be very careful that even if you're talking to somebody else in an open meeting, that other person can't be seen as a go-between between two of you. Well, I didn't really say that to him, I said it to so-and-so. That doesn't count. The legislature knows that trick, okay? By the way, they're the only people this law doesn't apply to. They're not, they made it apply to you guys, but not to them. It's not easy, but it is a criminal offense. So you have to be careful. And if you think you're close to the line, and this happened so long ago that nobody even remembers the people, but the one time my stomach really dropped at a DDB meeting was when several people went to an out-of-town learning experience, carpooled, came back together, and talked about how wonderful all those ideas were. We had a great time discussing everything we learned and what we could implement. Major violation, because I'm fairly sure that car was not open to the public, easy, accessible, and there were no minutes. All right? So it's stuff that you do by accident. You have to be very, very aware. When I say it has to be accessible, meaningfully accessible, you guys got to talk louder than you're talking. There are two people on this board I could hear easily. And I'm not sitting that far back. Granted, I'm an old lady and a little bit deaf, but still, I should be able to hear you. This is not the place to whisper. Every single one of your speakers, except I'm sorry, one, is easily audible. You need to do that too, all right? You need to make sure you're heard. It has to be meaningfully accessible. The other area, I'm not going to beat it to death. The other area that people get in trouble with is open records. If you text somebody, not each other, a third person, if you text a third person about something that's going to come before this board, that is a public record that has to be saved and given to the people who take care of your records. If you text somebody about, also keep in mind, this gets people in trouble all the time. If you text somebody or email somebody, even a friend who lives in Minneapolis, about a board member and toss in a dirty joke, that whole message is public record, folks. So be careful you keep your personal and your business apart. And that's the stuff that comes back and bites you 10, 15 years later. I mean, the stuff I did when I was young, nobody even remembers. It's not, that stuff goes away. This stuff doesn't go away. It stays. So anything you get, a telephone call, a taped message, you have to, those are public records if it's about DDB business.
Right, and I think the major point of this slide is these are rules that we can't change.
Pardon?
Right? The major point of this slide is these are rules we can't change. So if you guys have more questions, we can go into more training at a different time.
Yeah, but this is something I just want you aware of so that you don't get in trouble, okay? And, let's see. This is mostly history. And I pretty much covered it. This is the local ordinance, the bylaws, the interlocal agreement. Those are your major documents, okay?
And these are the things that can change with the approval of city council, right? So this is what we're gonna be looking at as a body, right?
The ordinance has to be changed by city council. All we can do is make recommendations. The bylaws, you can change yourself. You have the authority of your bylaws. The difference between the ordinance and the bylaws, the ordinance is your overall document that empowers you. The bylaws take care of the nitty-gritty as to how you do your business. It's the same as if you had articles, if you were a business, your business has articles of incorporation, that's the overall document, and then your bylaws tell you how you run the meetings, how you do that. So your bylaws, you have some more, you have all the authority over, as long as they don't contradict the ordinance. They can't contradict the ordinance. This is history. We went through changes in '93. I was on the board. It was a very painful time. And the changes basically took away some powers that we'd never used and probably never would use because we don't have that big a budget. But they made us more of an advisor than we had been prior to that date, and they tied us to the CRA. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that's what happened. When I say it was painful, they actually wanted to kill the DDB. And this was sort of the compromise. You can exist separate and apart from the CRA, but only if the ordinance is changed, because right now the ordinance has you as an advisor to the CRA. You would never, what it had been in the past was it tied you to the city instead of the CRA. If you're going to exist after the CRA no longer exists, then you have to go back to being tied to the city. You're never going to be the big infrastructure people. It's not that you don't have the desire, you just don't have the money. So you're going to have to recognize that you're going to be a supporting role on major changes, an advising role on major changes. But still changes should be made in order to let you continue doing so. Your goals, you know, I hear a lot of talk about, and I get very frustrated with progress in downtown. But if you look at your ordinance, your purpose was revitalization, still is revitalization, and to keep things from getting worse. Okay, your purpose is to maintain. If you look at the ordinance, it specifically states some of the problems it saw with downtown when it was set up. And some of these are still there, and some of them have been improved. But what we need to do going through and recommending revisions is deciding what should be in here that isn't and what shouldn't be in here that is. I mean, traffic flow was impeded. We were major artery to the beach. Traffic flow is a big issue, uncoordinated uses of property and parking areas. We've got substantially more parking than we had back then. Railroad traffic is probably not the issue it was back then. Air pollution, vacant and deteriorating buildings. These are the things that they listed back then. Vacant lots, few residences. There have been improvements in all of these areas. There really have. I grew up in this area, and I remember when I was a kid and it was a vibrant downtown. And then when all the car dealers came in, there have been a lot of changes. But since the DDB came in, there have been a lot of improvements. The city and the CRA and the DDB are making a difference. If we are going to continue, some of the things we need to do, we need to separate us not from the CRA while it exists, but separate us enough so that we can exist when the CRA ceases to exist. If you're going to continue, you need to update those problems that I just put in, tell us what the new ones are, tell us which ones are no longer applicable. I don't think those two trains that go through here, one at night, one at the daytime, is a major issue for us anymore. You need to update our methods and powers. Before you can update the methods and powers, though, you've got to decide your purpose and what things you're trying to cure. And you need to simplify the election process. And part of that can be done through your bylaws. Most of that can be done through your bylaws. The election process, not the others. The others are ordinance.
Do you all have a copy of the current ordinance, a hard copy?
I gave it to you. It's part of that package.
I have it.
Yeah, it's part of that package I gave to you all last time. I gave you the ordinance as it was revised, the ordinance as it is now, and your bylaws are all part of that package. And I'm sure you all have memorized it because it was fascinating. But
Okay, so that.
Any questions or?
So I've also passed out the bylaws with Paris's proposed amendment, so that's for you guys to take home and look through and think about. Same thing, I'll follow up with an email with an electronic copy of the current ordinances and give you some questions to answer around, you know, what should the purposes be, what would you like to see in the new ordinances, and then we're gonna be recommending an elections process. I don't expect you to come up with that
We're gonna work with the county to see what the county attorney's office, see what they recommend, because they're, so certainly have more experience in elections than we do, and see if there's, you know, our elections are different from theirs in that theirs are individual citizens voting. We're actually properties voting. So whereas in their elections, 3 people can live in the house and all 3 vote, with us, we've got 1 vote. So there are some complications we have that they don't.
So thank you, Elise. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Great, I just wanted to make a comment on, everybody got a copy of the proposed amended rewrite that I've done. That was basically just going through the bylaws as they existed and removing the things that didn't make sense or that were completely outdated, correcting whatever needed to be correcting. I haven't drastically changed it or put in any great new initiatives or anything like that. I just kind of cleaned it up. And if at some point we adopt that, that's not to say that we can't further amend it as people get bright ideas or see things that aren't in it that need to be changed. So if somebody would take the time to read through it and see if anything strikes you as being missing from it, we can discuss that at a future meeting. To actually make this take effect, it takes 35 days public notice, so we can't even vote, we can't have a motion or vote on anything today or even next meeting. It takes in advance of, you have to sort of schedule it 2 meetings away before you can vote on it. So you have time to look at it, but please do look at it. Okay, on to the next agenda item.
All right, so you were handed out, we discussed this at the last meeting, and now you have the handout in front of you of the work plan that's proposed for the remainder of this year. Remember, we consolidated, so it's 1 point person per project, so we don't worry about violating sunshine laws. And then the budget has been modified to match this. So looking for approval of this tonight, or if there's any amendments that you want to make now and then approve.
Can you give us a brief explanation of the differences between option 1 and option 2 on the video campaign?
Yes. Let's.
Is that part of this item?
Yes, it is.
It's between this and the budget item, so either way. So on this handout, which is option 1 and option 2 for the video campaign, this is strategy number 1, hire PR firm to promote downtown. On the work plan, what that evolved to over the year was to this marketing campaign, a video campaign. And there were 2 options, the budget for that is $24,400. Right, and so 2 options have come forward. The first one that Rosemary had presented a while ago when I was on maternity leave was a professional video campaign. So 3 to 4, 15 seconds to 1 minute videos, right, that would focus on downtown businesses, and then we would do a big rollout on Facebook and other online platforms to push those. And then option 2 on the back was a crowdsourced video campaign. So this idea came up during a DDB meeting, is my understanding, right, to do more of an organic contest type thing. So why I'm putting this in front of you this way is that we know now that the crowdsourced campaign has to go through a third-party organization, that we can't award contest prizes. We just can't give money out to people, right, in terms of like gifts or awards or things like that. So I say that to say that if it's option 1, right, we know that CRA staff can do that probably. We can do it in-house, right? We can hire someone to produce the video. That can be a little quicker. That's probably something that we can do by October 1st. The crowdsourced campaign, we might be able to do it quickly as well if we find that third party, but it also might take us into next budget year. Totally happy to do either one, and that's just a difference in timing.
So we would need a third person to award the money, but we don't need a third source, we don't need a third party to promote it.
So once the videos are created, we can absolutely post them on any city CRA channels and push them out into those kind of things.
And we can spend funds to do that.
Correct, but
we just cannot spend funds directly on the award money.
But we would get a third-party organization that you would give a grant to, right, or pay for services to create these videos, they
Like
would
Art
do
Alliance.
that in the way of a contest.
Okay.
Right,
A
exactly.
non-for-profit art organization.
It can be, I don't even know if it has to be a non-profit organization.
Do we have?
But it just
the-
has to be not you guys saying, you win, here's $10,000, right?
Okay, so hypothetically, that could work, but do we know the names, or have we identified anyone that could serve in that function as the third party at this point?
We have not had conversations with anyone. I can think of a few organizations, but I don't know what their capacity is. We'd have to talk about who would do the work, right? The Clearwater Arts Alliance is a small volunteer run. Clearwater Downtown Partnership, small volunteer run, right? So we'd have to probably find some other organizations that might be able to do, or we'd have to sit down and say, okay, actually, how would this work, right? Because it can't just end up being one person who already has 14 volunteer duties, right?
So it could be a mix of option 1 and 2 if we hired a professional video or a company that does marketing and said, your task is to do option 2 for us.
Well, isn't that what option 1 is?
And option 2 is they go out and hire somebody professionally, not a contest.
Would a professional marketing firm be interested in running and hosting a organic
I don't know if they
campaign?
would
I
or
don't
not.
know, but yes,
Yeah.
we can ask them to do that.
Okay, but option 2 is listed here. We don't really know who that would be. We don't have a way of doing that from where we stand right this minute.
I can look into it and have an answer for you by next month.
Great.
So are you
I
giving
can
us
reach out to everybody that I know, and I probably can find a source that can do it.
a choice of, we get option 1 or option 2, or can we do both?
Well, you can't do both this fiscal year. Well, maybe you
Not
can
with this
with actually the balance of the money that we have left. So no matter what, once a content is created, a video, blog post, whatever it may be, the CRA can absolutely publish that content. No question about that. We can buy Facebook ads, we can share content. The question is, if you want a call to go out to say, hey, who wants to create this video, right? And then we want to award a cash prize, that component has to happen from someone outside of a city entity,
Which is your option 2 here.
which is option 2. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because, right, I'm trying to organize staff time and I want to be responsive to you guys, right? So just know, depending on who we find, you know, if we find someone quickly, right, option 2 may happen quicker. I'm just letting you know option 1 is more in our control than option 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we give Amanda the okay to go ahead with option 1 and have Lena explore somebody to be the organizer and driver behind option 2, to be funded out of future Clearwater initiatives.
With that surplus that you're talking about?
Correct.
I'm liking that.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that meant.
You thought me to say that again?
I don't think you could. If you would.
So same budget.
Same budget?
Same budget.
So this budget you already have allocated, right,
Right.
under PR campaign.
Yes.
So what I heard is move forward with that budget with option 1. So
Immediately.
Rosemary DeMore will start working immediately on this, and we'll get that money transferred over to CRA. And then working with member Teixeira for option 2, same amount, $24,400 funded out of future downtown initiatives.
No, I'm sorry about that. Not the same amount. I don't think we want to spend $24,000 on a giveaway. when we're-
No. The 5,000 is the giveaway. 20,000 is the marketing of the video. Remember, we changed up the numbers. 5,000 is for the video in option 2.
No, it's the other way around. It's 15 to 20,000 on the video campaign.
No.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
No.
okay, on this page, yes. On the
Yes.
next page, it's different.
Remember, it's organic.
Yes.
So now we have just 2 or 3 prizes, which add up to 5,000. So the video itself is 5,000. The marketing is 20,000. So that's option number 2. So now we just learned that we just need a third person to award that money and decide, so that there's no conflict or untoward.
But in your motion, are you saying we do the 24,000 option 1, and then if Lena finds somebody, we also do 24,000 in
No,
option 2?
not 24 on option 2, 5,000, that's prize money on option 2.
But then what's
Then how
the
does it get
budget
promoted?
how are we gonna use those videos?
I would
Right now,
recommend you're setting a project budget of that amount, and then we'll come back with the details of how it's allocated.
And it may have to be more than 5,000. I mean, maybe Clearwater, if using Clearwater Arts Alliance, if that happens to be the organization, maybe they need something to run it, if you will.
Right.
To do
Right, I
the
mean,
outreach
there will
for-
be some fee for service.
Mhm.
But to, I
So
need to
restate
understand, you
your-
want both? You want to start off with one and then do the second? Or do you want to compare what I come up with and,
No, I want to do both.
you want to do both? I like that.
Okay, and so
With-
how much money are you making a motion for in
The
each?
24,000 for option 1,
Okay,
okay?
And-
And 5,000 plus for prize money on the crowdsourced video campaign.
But then how do we promote those videos?
Option 1,
Option 1.
use the
Say-
option.
Oh, okay,
If we
so-
own the videos, and you're going to stream them to Facebook.
So share the marketing budget
Yeah,
for both
absolutely.
videos?
okay,
Okay.
so
I got it.
5,000 plus isn't really a number. Give us
Okay, so
the motion a number.
$7,250, 5,000 dedicated to prize money, and 2,500 to an organization that would provide the.
Run the contest,
run
essentially.
Run the deal, right.
7,500, just to make sure not, because you said 7,250, and then
There's
I'm
the
a numbers
treasurer.
guy.
Yeah.
7,500.
Good
Thank you.
catch there.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Lena seconds it. Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? None. It's unanimous. Okay, you're still on your agenda item.
Well, the rest of the work plan, so we had PR firm for downtown, we've gotten that taken care of. Looked at amending this, first we had partner with an educational institution to train high-tech and design workers. I proposed modifying that to host an event with St. Pete College and some of our tech CEOs to discuss workforce needs and opportunities, to have some kind of conversational event. I don't know if that's exciting or not to you. I think that's achievable in this year, but there's that. Then looking at championing the special events permitting process to support increased events downtown, right? We know that it's costly. We want our merchants, we want it to be easier to close the streets, right? We want to get good numbers to know what would it take to support more people doing events in downtown. And again, that's more of a conversational piece, and there's some funding in there if we wanted to make a one-pager illustration or a video how-to tutorial or something like that. The art tech exhibition, so that's the augmented reality, and then of course the ordinance update.
So do we need a motion on each one of those items, or are you just informing us?
I would love for you to approve this if this is what you want to work on, and if there's anything that you want to X out or add, now would be the time to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Clearwater one-year tactical plan, August the 1st, this says 2018, is that
Oh, that should say 19.
2019?
Second.
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing. Have we not already allocated in the current budget some of these funds for these activities? Or are you talking next year's budget now?
No, we're not
No,
actually
some of it's
talking-
current budget.
So we're talking this budget right now for these items?
So think of this just as the work plan right
Right.
now. Don't get attached to these numbers, because the numbers are going to come up in the budget next.
But some of the funds already
Your art
exist?
tech one already exists in this budget.
Okay, so which ones are new money that we would,
There is no new money.
this is all from this year's budget?
Correct.
So it's already funded?
Correct.
Okay. Good. So go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut off your motion there.
No, I think.
We have it approved in a second,
Moved
right?
and seconded, we need a vote. Call the question?
You just started with the motion.
Started with the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
All right, so in the proposed budget that you should have there online, right, this document here. everything. Basically, you have three areas of your discretionary income, right? The non-fixed expenses. So if you click on the item, on the agenda item, 4.7, and then you'll see attachment 1, preliminary budget with updates. Okay, so you're being asked to approve this budget tonight, and it would take effect October 1st. And remember that you can amend your budget at any time, right? At any monthly meeting, you can amend and transfer and those kind of things. So the summary up here on your screen, so this is for next year's budget, right? That would start October 31st. You're looking at under marketing, if you fund all the special events at what they've requested, there's 6 at $79,000. Then I have proposed unidentified special events at $30,000, right? So at any time during the year, if someone comes up and says, I'd like to do this certain idea, you could fund it out of that. And then graphic design and promotion, so this would now be, a portion of it could be the organic video campaign, right? We have $25,000, so you still have some money proposed in there for additional marketing. Under business assistance, we've removed the maintenance, right? CRA is going to pay for maintenance. You have your contribution to the holiday lighting and the downtown core and the Jolly Trolley, their request in there. And then under project and policy work, we have the ordinance update. So this would be any additional fee that, Elise would charge, or any additional printing if we happen to need that. If you want to do the high-tech workforce event, another one, there's money in there for that. And then Station Square Park events, we put in $20,000 for that to have some leeway. That leaves you $71,208 in future downtown initiatives or unidentified projects or things at this point.
And we still have the reserves at 75,000.
And your reserves at 75,000, yes.
So that 71,000 takes in the money that's going to be left over at the end of this year, plus all the new money coming in.
That's next year.
It does not.
That's assuming nothing's left.
This budget right now assumes that we've spent
all of
our money.
Of this year's money.
Right, because 2 months out, it's going to be very hard for me to predict that exact number,
Okay.
right?
But at this point, in the first slide that you showed us at the beginning of the meeting today,
Yes,
there was about 53,000 that is likely, unless something else comes up, is likely to be unspent and would be added to that 71,000.
that is correct.
Okay, just to be clear. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, just to clarify, the money that's left over, it's not called retained earnings, what is it?
Future initiatives, we've renamed it.
Okay, good, that's what I thought, I couldn't remember that.
Because we're not really an investment firm.
We earn nothing.
We retain very little.
So future initiatives would
Dollars
be
or
the
otherwise.
dollars that if we're looking for initiative of closing the street down efforts, which is a big expense, that would be under that category.
Absolutely.
So let's say a test drive of a month of closing the street every Saturday, that would be something that I could petition the board or someone else can.
Correct.
Okay, because that's what a lot of the questions
If
I'm
you wanted to do
getting.
lighting upgrades, if you wanted to do anything that you would like to spend money on or create a project on, that is unallocated funds.
So I have a point, number one. I like this new approach to put it on there. It makes it much more understandable to lump it into bundles like this. Number two, in the interests of time, I would like to, unless there's any further discussion, I would like to entertain a motion on adopting this as proposed.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Very good. All in favor? Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, and now, our next is also Amanda.
If you hit your back button on your browser, you can pull up the interlocal agreement under item 4.8. But essentially, this is the agreement between the CRA and the DDB that we will be staffing you. It outlines what you will do, it outlines what we will do, and it says that that incremental tax payment we will be returning to you. So it'll be a part of your budget minus our administrative fee. And it is considered by you, and then it goes to the CRA trustees at their next meeting.
Very good. So now we're looking for a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 interlocal agreement with the CRA.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll move forward.
All right, and this is the second hearing on the CRA's funding request. CRA updates. Okay,
You might as well just stay up there, Amanda.
It's okay, this keeps me awake. Okay, so each of you were emailed the parking study, and this is the update that I gave to the CRA trustees when I returned from maternity leave a few months ago. Parking study, essentially recommendations where we need to update our technology. That's not a surprise to anyone. Keep the public parking within 2 blocks of Cleveland Street open to the public, right? Don't sell off permits or block it off to one user. And consider building new public parking at one of the 3 sites identified in the study. Right, so this is the map that I was referring to earlier. And if you look at number 1, this space here, this is where the current bus station and parking lot is. This is the spot that has the highest priority for building additional public parking as Imagine Clearwater is constructed, right? Because it's closest to Cleveland Street and where the concentration of merchants are, and it's the closest walk to the park. So again, once we trip over 5,000 attendees, right, in special events, that's when we run out of parking at this point for our current supply. Short-term options, prioritizing curb space for valet, Uber, other types of drop-off, working with parking solution for retail and restaurant employees, because right now they are using the Harborview lower-level parking lot, which is going to go away soon, and look at shuttle routes between parking garage locations. We have a new parking manager, Steve Ryder, who has come on board, and he and the parking department will be responsible for implementing these recommendations, right? They manage parking all the time. That is what they do. And we have the funding for wayfinding signage. So I know, trust me, no one is, I can't say no one's more frustrated than I am. We're all equally anticipating the construction of wayfinding. It is in the engineering department. It should have been let out to bid, but the funding is in place. It is secured. CRA has $500,000 to spend just on wayfinding in downtown. The designs have been approved, the constructed documents have been developed, so it should be built any second. But please rest assured that the funding is there for the wayfinding.
Nick, you say the design has already been done.
The design's already been done.
Can we see what's been
Yeah,
done?
I can send that to you guys.
Quick question, Amanda.
Yes.
When you say there are those 3, 1, 2, 3 parking spot locations, are those either or are those 3 anticipated expansions
So
of
these
parking?
will all be contingent on other projects, right? So spot number 1 is owned by the county. And does PSTA own it, Councilmember Albright?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this map, this drawing's not exactly right. Number 1 is on the county lot alone, and if we do that on that block, it's gonna be the whole block, because PSTA, we're moving over to Court and Myrtle.
Is that a definite that PSTA is moving? Do we not have a time frame?
That's why we bought the St. Pete Times building.
Yeah, they've already applied for their funding with the, I think, federal government, and the conceptuals on that are out. They're working with the city right now for actually both blocks, the Myrtle Court Street block plus the Franklin Pierce block in front of the police station. They're gonna take the whole thing. It'll be a joint effort between the city and PSTA for a multimodal site.
Now, so that means that number 1 will be the entire city block.
Correct.
But you're saying that will happen as a parking lot that involves whether the county and the city do something, or?
So there's 2 outstanding projects. One is the final design and location of PSTA Multimodal Center,
The second is, will there be a joint city-county facility or not? Right, so, which we will have the answers to both of those no later than, very soon. Within the next 90 days, I think would be reasonable to say. And then if the city is going to move forward on its own in building a new city hall by itself or consolidating city functions, then we will need to determine the location immediately and begin working on that. I think everyone's goal is that we want a new city hall constructed and whatever public parking component is needed before our lease is up at the One Clearwater Tower, also known as Bank of America building. Right, which we're 4 years away from.
So if I understand this, the city and the county would jointly build an office structure with a parking lot in it, or if that doesn't happen, the city will build a city hall with a parking lot in it.
Correct.
On that site.
Either 1 or 3.
Where is,
Oh, I see, okay.
is 2 south of Drew there? I'm trying to.
So this is Cleveland, this is Laura Street, so this is this is east where the trail is right now.
Oh, okay.
So this is privately owned. The city owns one out parcel within here, but this is privately owned.
So if you say it's between 1 and 3, if it goes to 3, what will happen to lot 1?
Well, right now, the county and PSTA own it, so I don't know.
Okay,
It would be their decision.
I got it, okay. Okay, anybody else?
I have some questions. Who ordered this report? Did the DDB board order this report, or is it some?
No, the CRA funded and worked with, this is 2 parking managers ago now, to do this study. Because there wasn't a single city department that was even ready to make some recommendations around this issue. Right, so an important part of this study was seeing, yes, imagine Clearwater's coming, and we need to start thinking now, knowing what parking's needed as those renovations happen and where they need to go. So the CRA paid for and ordered this study.
And CRA supervised the report also.
Correct.
And I think the version July 25th, 2019, that's the latest version of the
That
report.
is the final complete report, yes. What was emailed to you is the final report.
And Amanda, Michael made reference to the parking meters coming out of the City Hall parking lot. Does that mean that that's now open for employees, for downtown retail employees to use? Or what's the plan for that space for the next few, till something else happens?
That was a recommendation of council, and I'm not sure.
What was the question again?
The City Hall parking lot free now.
The City Hall parking lot, if the parking meters are being removed, does that mean that people that work downtown can park their cars there, starting now, or?
As soon as they're gone.
Now, we have agreements that certain parts of it are reserved for Ruth Eckhart's Hall use, and Pinellas County employees, because they're letting us use the lot behind the Capitol Theater. But other than that, it should be open to the public.
Excellent.
This was if I may, this was the solution for short-term assistance for downtown. Long-term will be the parking garage. With or without county and city cooperation, we do need a downtown parking garage.
My employees will be very pleased to
And
hear
the
that.
idea, it's an ongoing conversation as far as this short-term solution. But the idea is not to spend money to improve the CMA parking lot, because it's currently grass. But how do we not set a precedent to be able to allow that to be free and used? So I think the conversation is still ongoing, but the direction that I'm heading for is to use the CMA parking lot, have that for employees, either by sticker or whatever, and let the patrons use the free CMA, that will be available. Because, yeah, the CMA, City Hall, because some of that still will be retained by Ruth Eckert Hall. And I think Water's Edge still has one row of additional spots that they pay permit for.
Excellent. Okay, so
I'd like to have.
it's being responsive to.
It's being responsive to a short immediate need.
downtown.
Right.
That's good. That's good news.
I'd
Anyone
like-
else?
I have a few questions.
Mhm.
Thanks for sending the parking report, the final report. We just got it on Monday, and I'm still trying to get back and across the pond in my mind. So on page 6, I need you to verify a couple of things because there's a bit of discrepancies and I need you to verify some of the numbers. I think there's a couple of typos, I guess starting with 1130 and 1150 Cleveland. It's listed as an office, but they're actually residential retail spaces, but I don't think that's significant. But then I noticed my numbers don't jive with the reports, if you can verify. For example,
Sure, I'll have to write it down. I don't have the report in front of me, so
Okay.
I'll just write it down and respond
no,
to you all
yeah,
by email.
okay. So double A, North Osceola, that's off by 1 according to my little walkthrough. Double B is off by 5, double D is off by 1, double E is off by 2, and double P is off by 5.
Okay, the parking department has checked all of those and signed off on those numbers. So I will ask Sue Tellier in the parking department, but that document though has been signed off on them is correct. So whether it's counting reserved or unreserved or, you know, I don't know how you were looking at it and counting it, but that's our parking department has said all those numbers are correct.
In the interest of time, Lena, maybe you could put what you have in an email to her, and then she could send that on to the parking department. And
Okay.
we can move on.
So this is a little bit
By
less.
the way, before you-
minute. Yeah, go on.
Pardon me, before you leave page 6, you might want to note that double B and double C are both gone once Imagine Clearwater gets done. And if we're looking at this as a document to provide parking for the next 5 years out, we probably need to be aware that some of this parking's not going to exist at that time.
Right, and when you read further, it accounts for that going away.
It's discussed later on.
Right, so the first part of it is that point in time in August when this was conducted, right? That's a point in time count. Here's the spaces that existed, here's where they were, here's what the counts are. And then as you go through, it says, okay, we know this will always be reserved. We know this part of Imagine Clearwater parking lots are going away. We know this kind of demand will be generated. We assumed 95% vacancy on Cleveland Street, right? Or sorry, 95% occupancy, right? Right, so we took, in calculating future parking demand, we did the highest demand that you can imagine, right? And that's what those recommendations are based on. 95%, occupancy, adding 10% seasonality on top of it. None of the counts today took in on-street parking. It assumed all on-street parking was full all the time. So I can promise you, we looked at this in the most aggressive scenario, right? And that's where the future recommendations come from of how much public parking will be needed to be constructed over the next 10 years.
So you're saying aggressive. Okay, so that's a perfect segue to page number 18. I need you to help me understand something. It was detailed that there's presently 12,850 square feet of vacant restaurant space. Can you identify that? Because I feel like, according to my calculations, that's half of what I can estimate.
So I'll send you the spreadsheet. Anne Fogarty France did this personally, going up and down the street and prepared, again, an Excel document in August of last year, right, and sent that.
2018.
So, yes, because that's when this study was conducted, right? So that's part of the challenge too, is like, this is not a dynamic study, right? It was a point in time at that point in time, right? So spaces will change, but I'm happy to send you guys a document of the inventory that was prepared.
Okay, so let's say the numbers have been changing. I don't understand how it's actually gotten worse at this point. I mean, 12,850 to me is half. I mean, we're talking about Water's Edge 4,500, Skyview 6,500, south side of 500 is 6,500 square feet. That's empty. Another 2,000 came empty this month. 5,000 has 500 on the south side has 5,000. If I start adding that up, it's not reflected in this report. And then we're discussing a formula about leasable office space and all that, which then goes on to say that the total demand for the next 10 years is approximately 449 vehicles just for office space. So that would be leaving 33 spaces for restaurants, and that's not enough. So I'm not following the numbers. I don't think And so I would love to sit down and go over these numbers with you, because to me, they're not accurate. 33 parking spaces for a restaurant, according to my colleagues who are restaurant owners. The industry standard is 60 to 80 per 5,000 square feet. But it's estimating that in the next 10 years, there's only going to be a need of 449 for total, which leaves 33 spaces for restaurant. I would love to sit down and get this to understand, because it doesn't make sense to me. A lot of these numbers are not what I perceive. That's not what I've been counting. Alone in the 500 block and the 600, that's 12,000 square feet. And that doesn't even count the French restaurant.
You could just work that out with her.
I understand that, but doesn't this concern you
No.
No, it doesn't concern
No,
you?
doesn't at
That we
all.
got a final report that I still don't understand and the numbers don't make sense? No.
You know, you boom to downtown, the parking's not gonna be a problem.
If you what?
I was born and raised in Manhattan, so,
Manhattan has a
but
top
they
of the
got the
line,
business first, then they worried about the parking.
they had the infrastructure there.
Yeah.
We'll see. I would love to go through these
What
numbers,
I'd
but it don't make
suggest
sense.
is, if you get together with Amanda, clarify whatever questions you have, and if that doesn't sort it out, then there's a policy discussion to take place. But maybe it's just a misunderstanding at this point.
Has anyone else read the report?
I haven't had a chance to digest it. I've glanced at it. I can't say that I've studied it in depth,
Well,
so
then
I
I'd like
can't
to
speak to it at this point.
And I'd like to continue this conversation next month. Apparently, I need a permission from you in a 30-day to put something on an agenda, right? Did I understand?
Your bylaws say that the chair sets the agenda.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, in the past, I think when people brought up things at meetings, the chair's been amenable, right? And then we need, if you want, for example, this is a perfect example.
Right.
If you want me to go through page by page, right, and have a presentation, then I need 30 days notice.
Right.
Right? Unless we're gonna stop the other things that we're doing, right? That gives me enough time to allocate staff time and everything. Because remember, this is one, we're missing a person right now. And two, remember, we've got CRA too. So for me to give you complete and thorough answers, that's the notice that we need.
Yeah.
What about follow-up conversations? So like, we're having this conversation now and I want to continue it. I need a formal request to the chair, correct? The 30-day.
If there is something that you want on the agenda. Right, so what you guys don't see behind the scenes is that when you email, whether it was Anne France or currently I'm the DDB administrator, when it's 10 days before agenda publication, we coordinate with Paris. We say, Paris, are you okay with this? Right? You have any thoughts about this? After 10 days, it's got to be brought up in a meeting, right? Because of open records and because the city clerk's office publicizes our agenda, right? Which is shorter than like a CRA, which is 3 weeks in advance, right? So that's where that comes from, right? Is the other systems that we're a part of. So again, you're bringing up now, if you want us to go page by page or walk through the numbers, whatever you would like out of the parking study, happy to prepare it.
But the proper process has to be written, correct? Written.
You can bring it up in a meeting, as you're doing now.
You can bring it up right now. If you're suggesting that we have an agenda item next month to discuss the parking study in greater detail,
Yes.
we can add that as an agenda item. What I would say that should occur between now and then is, we only got this, was it yesterday or the day before?
On Monday?
On Monday. So I haven't had a chance since then to thoroughly study it and have opinions about it. So it would be best to, if I had that much time, I could certainly be prepared to discuss it at that time. But get whatever questions or things that don't make sense, see if you can get them sorted out before that meeting, and then we can just discuss policy at the meeting rather than trying to figure it out.
But, I mean, that's up to you guys. What I'll say is this report has been thoroughly vetted by city staff, right? And I'm not saying there's not a period missing somewhere, but in terms of the maps and the counts, you know, the vacancies, all those things, they were what was in existence in August, right, when this report was prepared, and they have been thoroughly vetted by the parking staff. So and any minor changes, or, you know, when you're saying one space here, one space there, it's not gonna change the conclusions and recommendations of the report. It's not gonna be a big enough change that it would say, aha, something totally different should happen. So I agree, it's a technical report. It was designed for city staff, actually, not the general public, and designed to inform these future developments. So I don't think it's the easiest thing to understand, so I'm happy to walk through so you guys understand where numbers came from and how it works, but I don't want you to think that there's gonna be some discovery that's gonna dramatically change the outcomes of what it's concluded.
Okay, so bottom line, we'll discuss this at the next meeting. Let's move on. Are we ready to move on? Item. Okay, the next, we have a funding request for the CRA second holiday extravaganza, the second reading. Amanda, can you take the lead on that?
Yes, so this is the second reading requesting coming out of the Station Square events line for $5,000. So the DDB would be the lead sponsor on the holiday extravaganza activities.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, discussion. These are funds coming from this year or next year?
This year.
This year.
So we can go ahead and get started.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, now then we have the item to approve a CRA request to transfer the $25,000 budget line item, the Art Tech exhibitions for downtown Clearwater augmented reality experience to CRA project budget. I'm not sure I understood what that said. Can you explain that to us, Amanda?
Yes, and actually, I'll explain the technical, but Lena has the update for this project. But essentially, you have to approve if we move it out of your account into our account, and we'll pay the bills.
Move to approve.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? Did you have anything you wanted to add, Lena?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just to kind of bring
Please.
you guys up to speed. So the contract has been signed with USF's Access 3D Lab for $25,000 for a mixed reality installation in downtown Clearwater. So there's going to be an augmented and virtual reality to bring to the mural garden, which is called Comunidad, which is a public mural. It's going to be brought to life, I guess. It will include many things, including a scan of the mural and streetscape, interactive features, audio, educational slides, enhanced map, a video, text interactivity, user interaction with a data collection that we can use to track using that very installation. There's also going to be an educational outreach to build community buy-in and momentum for the project, and it goes on and on and on. But this was previewed at the June 22nd Downtown Clearwater Arts Tech Showcase at Second Century. It was very well received, and the timeline should be the fall of 2019 is where we're looking at, with the official launch of the whole thing by May 2020. So we're going to start with an event to showcase it, and then it's with the official launch in May of 2020.
Thank you. Thank you for the update and for all your work on this.
I didn't actually do anything.
You make it
I
easy?
didn't. Rosemary did everything. I was just,
Oh, really?
we've just been communicating back and forth.
Well, thanks
And
for
I've
staying
just
on
been
top of it,
saying-
and thanks to Rosemary then.
Absolutely.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There are none opposed. Okay, now we're moving on to the nominating committee update, and again, we turn to Amanda.
So far, we've had Keenan Kinsel and Shahab Imrani, who have signed up to run. Since this memo was posted, also Festus Probini, who works for the Ring and lives in Water's Edge, has thrown his hat into the ring, and Dan Shevlin has asked about it, but he has to determine if Clear Sky is his principal place of business. He does not live in downtown, so he has to identify a principal place of business in order to be eligible. And then, as we know, member Tasheda is running for city council, so she will not be running for DDB again. So that spot is open. And then, of course, member Showerman and our chair have not said one way or the other yet, right? And you two are the other two.
It's a mystery.
So we'll have a complete list on September 4th.
Great.
There are 3 open seats, correct?
There are 3 open seats.
Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, Chairman's report. We have upcoming events. On August the 16th, we have the Downtown Art from 7 to 9 p.m. For more information about downtown events, please go to downtownclearwater.com, our website. And finally, board members and ex officio members may have a final comment, beginning on my left.
I'm exhausted. Good night, everyone.
Very good.
I'm liking where it's going. Looking forward to 2020.
One question, has the vacancy that Ann left been posted? And do we have applicants yet, or?
Yes, I've set up phone interviews for next week, so it's been posted for about a month now. To be honest, we could use more candidates. So I have some phone interviews set up for next week, but if they, don't go well, then it's open until filled, right? So we'll continue to promote the position, but I can email everybody the link so you can send it out to people that you think would be good candidates.
Very good.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
No comments.
I don't want to be the only one. Have a good night.
Okay, sir.
Final comment from me would be, we just received that parking study as well. And so I've been digging through it, and I have questions, so I'm going to be asking for the parking manager as well as Amanda to present to City Council. So, because in the future, 60 to 80 parking spots for 7 vacant 5,000 restaurants that are non-existent today and not addressed in the future is concerning. So that would be my final comment.
David.
I just wanted to mention, it'll be good to have Michael come back next month because he didn't get through everything he should have said to you. He's got more things teed up down there that you should know about. One being the very active art program down there. It's also already got somebody working with DOT for LED uplights on the bridge for colored lights to really set that off. And he's got other plans as well and initiatives that are going that would be interesting to the DDB.
Excellent. Can we add, do we have that as an added item for the agenda for next month?
Yes, the 2 items that I have are, and remember you have 2 meetings in September, because one of them is your extra budget hearing or millage hearing.
Right.
So I'll get with you about, do you want to split that up, right, and have one night that's just focused on Imagine Clearwater or on the parking versus cramming it all into one meeting. We'll email and take a poll, but I have the parking study presentation and then Imagine Clearwater continued discussion.
Okay. Maybe we can get a consensus today. Usually the way these September meetings go, we have a regular meeting on the 1 week, and then a week later we have a very short meeting just to pass to finalize the resolutions for the budget. Do we want to add agenda items to that second meeting, or do we want to have a longer initial meeting?
I think it would depend on if Michael is available, like if he's only available for one of those days, we'd probably want to check to make sure he can be present. Like, let's say it's the shorter meeting, he can be present, but not the first one.
Right. If that isn't the consideration, what would you rather do, though?
He should be available. It's the first one, September 4th, a Wednesday. The second one, the shorter one, is Monday, September 9th.
Does anybody have an opinion one way or the other? Okay, then we'll just make a decision later, yeah. And my final comment is I appreciate very much all the contribution today from everybody. It's a very long meeting with a lot of topics and a lot of presentations. Thank you for your patience and forbearance. And with that, at 7:33 in the evening, this meeting is adjourned.
It's not 9 o'clock.